outside of Jerry Falwell, I can't think anybody I have greater contempt for than Ralph Nader. And no one in the history of the world has on a bigger ego trip than Ralph Nader.
One is always right. One is prefabricated in purity. I think this is Ralph Nader's understanding of the world. He can't make mistakes because he's saintly. He's the man on the white horse.
Thank you, Ralph, for the Iraq War. Thank you, Ralph, for the tax cuts. Thank you, Ralph, for the destruction of the environment. Thank you, Ralph, for the destruction of the Constitution.
I find this worse than naive. I think it borders on the wicked.
I just think the man needs to go away. I think he needs to live in a different country. He's done enough damage to this one. Let him damage somebody else's now.
There are some of his major supporters that just...
Ralph, go back to examining the rear end of automobiles and don't risk costing the Democrats a White House this year as you did 4 years ago.
Well, that's the real tragedy. It's going to be the first line of his obit. It's really, there's a Shakespearean feature to this.
It's a responsibility of a serious person.
On the issues that Nader stood for, it wasn't just
A lot of people still be alive if Ralph had been silenced from March to November.
Go back to examining the rear end of automobiles.
Two perish in the cab of burning truck. 2 Wisconsin couples die in car collision in North Dakota. 15 children orphaned. Texas collision takes 5 lives. Crash kills 6 on Chicago highway. And on through the daily newspapers.
Ralph decided that auto safety was of interest to him when some friends of his had been victimized by unsafe cars.
Here was someone saying, this vehicle that you think is the essence of your happiness, that the advertising community in Detroit has told you is everything you're ever going to need to be happy, is incredibly, recklessly dangerous.
Somebody once said to me, is Ralph paranoid? And I said, he's only paranoid because people are following him.
General Motors sends sexy women into a supermarket to seduce him into a compromising position. I mean, I thought this was the damnedest thing I'd ever heard in my life.
The president of General Motors was summoned.
You've got television cameras out there, and you've got a packed congressional hearing room. Everything's set up for maximum theater. You've got Bobby Kennedy there, Abraham Ribicoff, and then at a lower elevation, James Roach, CEO of General Motors.
Legal right to ascertain necessary facts preparatory to litigation.
I don't see how you can know and order the investigation and then put out a statement like this, which is not accurate. That, Mr. Roach, disturbs me as much as the fact that you conducted the investigation in the way that it was conducted in the beginning.
It made a huge impact because it was clear that there was something substantive here.
Let us assume that you found something wrong with his sex life. What would that have to do with whether or not he was right or wrong on the Corvair?
Nothing.
What?
Ribicoff had a copy of the book on the table in front of him as he was questioning General Motors, who said, and so you hired detectives to try to get dirt on this young man, to besmirch his character because of statements he made about your unsafe automobiles. And then he grabbed the book and threw it down on the table and said, and you didn't find a damn thing.
I think the thing that has persuaded me to continue and continue in this area is that I don't want to have a climate in this country where one has to have an ascetic existence and steely determinations in order to speak truthfully and candidly and critically of American industry.